Amicus analysis. Amicus analysis. Amicus analysis. Amicus analysis.
Hello and welcome to Hammerhead Season 2, the Amicus Adventures. We're on episode 3, going through all of Amicus Studios' horror movies with my best friend, Miles Watts.
Well,
hello.
Thanks, Wilson. Hi. We're only on episode 3, aren't we? It's been a year. That's all we're going to say. It's been a year.
It's been 3 months. Sorry, I see what you mean.
It feels like it's been a year since episode 2. But yeah, we've had a very busy summer, both of us, for different reasons. Marcus being in Canada for some of it. But that's not why we haven't broadcast, because he wanted to do an episode in Canada, but I've had a weird couple of months just with life stuff happening. So we said, let's just do it when we're free. And here we are, folks. We're back.
Melting in the British summer.
Yes, how pleasant.
And what better environment in which to discuss the 1965 film The Skull.
The Skull. Yeah.
Which is
it's a good one, this one.
Yes. The story of the skull of the Marquis de Sade.
I was going to make that same joke, so I'm glad you did it first.
Written from a short story by John Block. John Block? My friend John, not John, my friend John Block. Robert Block.
Oh, hi, John.
Hello, John.
Robert Block of Psycho fame, obviously, right. Yeah. Yes, what a great writer. And also a fantastic director and cinematographer, Freddie Francis, who we can discuss more as we go.
So this is a short story, but it's not a short movie. Well, it's not a long movie because it's about 86 minutes, but it's not one of their, what's the word that we're using? Is it?
Portmanteau. Yeah, 83 minutes, which some people would say is the perfect length for a horror movie. Because you get into it, and then before you know it, you're in the last act, and you're like, "Whoa!" You're sort of ramped up, and there's no fat on it. There's no. To be honest, I don't think you could have wrung any more out of this movie that's about a skull.
Yes, they workshopped the skull to death.
They did. We can get into the techniques and the sort of style of it as we go, because there's loads to discuss actually. But what facts do we know about this film, Marcus? Well,
we know it was released in 1965. We know it was another co-production from Rosenberg and Subotsky, the Amicus twins, as I'll call them. It was written by Robert Block, of course, and it brings together the great Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee again. Christopher Lee this time in more of a supporting role, less of a villain. This time a bit more of not a hero, but
He's kind of an anti-hero, isn't he?
Anti-hero, yeah.
Plus, he gets to say the amazing line, "Stay away from the skull of the Marquis de Sade." Yes. I'm like, there you go. Yeah, just earned his money with that one line.
Yes. Which is kind of that sums up his character in one line, I think.
Yes.
But Cushing and Lee play these. Well, I suppose they're sort of slight kind of antique, kind of collectors, stroke writers, stroke interested in the occult type folk.
Yeah. And I really liked that. I thought it was interesting, like, when it starts like a lot of Hammer films in a graveyard, and you sort of think, okay, they're clearly thinking of Hammer when they do this, but it's got no music. There's no sort of, it's just this relentless 5 minutes of digging up the Marquis de Sade.
Yeah, it's a long pre-title sequence, isn't it?
And for a film with so much music in it, the fact that it has no music for the first 5 minutes is kind of odd. Like, you'd think they'd set the tone and stuff, but it sort of lures you in quietly, with this grave robber.
The music is quite extraordinary. It's by Elizabeth Lutyens, I think. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation, but
I think that's how you say it, yeah.
Sort of classical composer, but very experimental for the time. And I've gone away and listened to a lot of her compositions and stuff since this. And it's she was kind of quite a prolific kind of prodigy, but very interesting approach to scoring.
And it's really great having a female composer, because they're few and far between, really, in the sort of history of movies. It's very male dominated, so it's nice to have a female composer. And she'd done a lot of concertos and classical music and opera and theatre and plays and that kind of thing. So this is one of her rare jaunts into movies. But it becomes very, very prevalent in the film, her score particularly
Yes.
in well, you need it in the last act because there's no dialogue. So you have to have
Yes,
something.
for about this for the last 20 for 30 minutes, it is very
Yeah.
much the music.
Yeah, and I really I sent you one of my favorite shots early on in the film that they'd
Uh,
framed, which is a really fantastic. I think it was a split diopter scene, but you've got Christopher Lee in the foreground in profile and Peter Cushing in the background, sort of watching him as they're bidding for the rare artifacts. And just I instantly thought Freddie Francis was such an amazing cinematographer.
well, we should say this. Freddie Francis directed the film, but as we've said in previous episodes, first in his career, he was a cinematographer, and that's what he brings to these
Yeah.
films. He's not
Yes.
known as a fantastic director, but an amazing cinematographer.
Yes, and I mean he also I remember he shot the Elephant Man. He shot the Elephant Man. He filmed the Elephant Man and also Dune, Lynch's Dune, and what was the other one?
You say
Straight Story.
Dune, not Dune.
I don't say Dune, no,
I don't
'cause
say
that
Dune.
sounds like Doon. And I really like Dune. I need to watch it again. I've got the 4K a couple of years ago, and I haven't watched it since it came out on 4K. But I really enjoyed the recent Dune films. But I've still got a huge fondness for the David Lynch one. I think it's a bit of a unique, even though he had to abandon it in the end because the studio interfered. But yeah, Freddie Francis, what an amazing cinematographer. And I love the way this film, The Skull, is shot. And I noticed one of the reviews, it was a fussy review from the 70s, 60s and 70s going, well, eventually the camera angles become irksome. And I'm like, no, they don't. This is clearly a master filmmaker because the shots are incredible throughout. For 83 minutes, the shots are incredible. They're beautifully framed. The movement's amazing. You're dealing with a real professional here, and the fact that he directed it, I think, is almost like irrelevant because it's just kind of his movie,
And released in the same year as last review, which was Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, which also starred Cushing and Lee.
Yes, I like the fact that they're in this film together, but completely different characters that they usually play.
Yes.
It becomes a real tour de force for Cushing by the end, but it starts with him. He's a mild-mannered, jovial chap, and he's going, oh well, he's trying to bid for these figurines, which become more sort of to the fore later on. They're the figurines that represent man's misbehavior, I guess, the demonic, the killing of other people and the mischievous games that men play.
Well, the skull is,
that's what they're bidding for.
Of course, supposed to be the skull of the Marquis de Sade, and and apparently has some sort of curse, or the evil intent of the Marquis is within the skull.
Yes, I think Christopher Lee says he was not evil. Is it Christopher Lee, or is the character that brings the skull to him, who reminds me of Anthony Hopkins? Actually, he looked like a shambolic Anthony Hopkins.
Is this Patrick Wymark?
Patrick Wymark as Marco, yeah, and he brings the skull to him, and they're like, "You've stolen it." He's like, "You've stolen this, haven't you?" And he's like, "Well, and he says, the Marquis de Sade wasn't mad, wasn't evil. He was possessed."
It's possessed.
So you're like, okay,
Yes.
so was he possessed by this evil demon that they're bidding for at the beginning? Which is almost like, it reminded me a bit of The Exorcist, actually, because at the beginning of The Exorcist, they're looking for, he unearths an artifact which is sort of meant to be cursed, which contains a spirit. And it sort of reminded me of that, these grotesque statues that they're bidding on, that Christopher Lee ends up getting for $1,500 or pounds. Is it pounds? Yeah, it's British, isn't it? And the only reason he's buying them is so people can't use them. Like the only reason he had the skull of Marquis de Sade is so people couldn't use it. And but Peter, the guy Marco steals it from Christopher Lee and starts pimping it around.
And apparently the true life story was de Sade's skull was removed from his grave in 1814 for phrenological study, and apparently it was later lost. So yes, it is rooted in vague truth, although the heirs of the Marquis de Sade did sue because they were wanting to use de Sade's name in the French film title, I think, so that had to be changed.
Skull of the Marquis de Sade. Yeah, it sort of reminded me of, it's a classic monkey's paw tale, isn't it? The cursed object, which is always Amicus did so well. And also, just anything that's got a MacGuffin in that came after or before, like Hitchcock or things like Maltese Falcon or something. Everyone's after the the MacGuffin, and this it happens to be in this case the skull.
The skull.
And it's not just a MacGuffin because I mean it's front and center highlighted for the last 30 minutes of the movie. The amount of shots in and of this skull that we see, it becomes this huge character in the film, doesn't it?
It is quite. It must have been quite hard to rig as well because you get these point of view shots shot from within the skull itself, sort of looking through the eyeball and then sort of floating around the house into room after room. And you know that influenced the original title sequences for the Naked Gun and Police Squad, where the car's going through the
room. Yeah, and I was wondering, if they did it in post or if they put I get the feeling they either put. I mean, I don't think they used the skull. Obviously, they used a flat image. They will have used a flat image of the eye sockets and the nose thing. Either put it over the camera out of focus and filmed through it, or done it in post. They might have just masked out because you have to frame. Peter Cushing appears in the hole of the eye socket in both sides. So if you couldn't see the final result, you wouldn't know what you were filming. But I wonder if they did it in post, or they probably did it practically, actually. They probably had like a rig with a flat mask over the top that looked like the skull.
But then you got this sort of like car indicator flashing almost, and then these paintings just being kind of rotated on the wall. It wasn't particularly scary. It's sort of the cinematography is what casts the spell, isn't it? But the visual effects are sort of a little bit okay.
Yeah, and you do get that last act, which is about 25 minutes. There's no dialogue, and Peter Cushing's amazing in it as usual. We make no secret of the fact that we're massive fans of Peter Cushing. He gives a bravura performance.
Always committed, isn't he? Totally committed.
Absolutely. To it. And he is at the end of this film, or at least he should be, and lol, committed. He goes mad looking at the skull, and they ring as many shots as they can of this skull, looking at him through the eyes, the shots of the skull, shots of it floating around, to the point where there's probably about 5 minutes too much footage of the skull.
Well, that's what
in the last half.
It sort of feels like the film starts to repeat itself towards the end as well, and how hard can it be to sort of arrest a slow-moving skull to the ground or something? It doesn't.
Yes, he's clearly going mad as well, because it ramps up. Like, it's got a really slow start, slow start, and then you have him succumbing to the skull once it's in his house. Things start to go downhill. I did like the fact that because the film opens with the guy, he robs the in the 18th century, or the 19th century, robs the skull.
Yes.
Goes back to his house, dissolves the skin off with acid, and then his mistress comes in and screams, and you flash back to it later with, well, what happened? It's like, well, you went crazy, and you sort of think that, well, is Peter Cushing's character going to repeat history and kill his mistress, his house? She's the housekeeper, isn't she?
Yeah.
But I love when you flash back and the lady says, who are you? And he goes, well, I'm not his wife. Duh. You know what I mean? He's one of those classic obsessed scientists, this guy at the beginning. He chops the head off, comes back to his house, shuns the woman who's in the bath. He says, get out the bath.
Get out. I'm going to be busy tonight. I need to be alone. And
she's lying on the bed in a nightie, sort of going, okay, well, there goes my evening. And he's just in the bathroom with a skull. That's a good cut, actually, yeah. And actually, my favourite cut of the whole movie I thought it was really well done, when Peter Cushing seems to be standing there ruminating into the distance, and it pulls back and you realise he's about to take a shot in the snooker game. With Peter Cushing, and it pulls right back to Christopher Lee. Yeah. That scene was fantastic, I thought. It obviously looked beautiful. But I love a game room with two gentlemen talking about the plot, It's just, I think it comes from Cluedo,
Just after that sequence, you get this slightly weird Kafkaesque thing where Cushing gets taken off by detectives who you're not kind of sure if they're real or taken to this sort of, I don't know, otherworldly courtroom. And then
that was brilliant. They're heavies, clearly, aren't they?
Yeah, then he has to play some kind of Russian roulette game.
That was brilliant. I thought that was, and it was getting quite giallo at that point. And I thought what would have been great, I think it's almost like they blew it quite early because they showed that, and then he goes through these weird. The walls are closing in on him, and the smoke's coming through the vents, and then he sort of comes to and goes, "Oh my god, did I just imagine all of that?" And it's quite sinister. It's quite like La
Yeah,
Cabina or something. He suddenly finds himself in this situation where he's like, "Why am I? Oh my god, this is a nightmare."
because
And then
that
you
was
think,
for me that was more disturbing than the sort of sequences towards
"Yeah,
the end. Yeah,
yes, yeah." It petered out towards the end. Peter Cushinged out towards the end. I think, like I thought, yeah, there was probably they had to fill the time slot because it was 83 minutes, which is quite short for a movie. I've got the feeling this is a 70-minute movie with 13 minutes extra footage in the
yeah.
edit.
Well, this is why I sort of talked about this it being a short story by Robert Bloch
Yeah.
and all these portmanteau movies. They've been doing. I mean, the previous movie that they've all done together has been this portmanteau movie where they're struggling to squeeze these plots into
Yeah.
these 10-15 minutes sequences, and now you feel that this is a short story that is being kind of protracted to fit a 90-minute format.
I did feel that, and I thought it would have been really good as a portmanteau story because it is a monkey's paw story. I think there is a Amicus
Yeah.
film with monkey's paw in it as one of the things that tells of the unexpected. Did monkey's paw as well?
Yeah.
That classic "careful what you wish for" thing. The Simpsons did a really great monkey's paw episode.
I
Actually,
love
do you remember? And it just the paw like creepily like moves a finger down every time one of the wishes happens, but the wish always comes with a side effect, like, "Oh, I wish for world peace." Boom. There's no noise ever. Everyone's quiet. Oh shit. And yeah, it struck me as a film that could have been 20 minutes long as part of a 3 or 5 part portmanteau story, even though it was beautifully made and beautifully acted.
It was beautifully made, and the music and the visuals were brilliant, and Peter Cushing was brilliant. And how well did Peter Cushing's wife sleep in this? She like couldn't be woken.
She didn't wake up at all. But you know why? And I said this to Vicky when we were watching it. I said, "See, look, how to survive a horror movie or an Amicus movie? Wear a crucifix."
Wear a crucifix and be asleep.
Because he goes in twice to kill her. And he's like, "Oh no, she's got a crucifix. Oh, she's got a crucifix. Oh, I'll just stab the skull in the eye instead, instead of my wife." But it looked incredible. The sets were amazing. The props were amazing. It's like that Freddie Francis managed to get all the best props, all the best sets, even the slightly wobbly nightmare set, but it is meant to be a nightmare of the walls closing in. But yeah, when those heavies walked in, and I'm sure it looked like the house that he lived in looked like where Paddington's family live in the new Paddington movies, but I don't know. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, when they came in, I said to Vicky, "Oh, they're heavies." And then they said, "We're the police." And I went, "You're not the police. Come on."
You're a
and
stripper.
then suddenly he's in the car and he's like, "Yeah, you're heavies." PC heavy. And his assistant, PC thug. And then, that judge who I thought for a moment was Freddie Jones, but I don't think it was really creepy. Yeah, it was very Kafkaesque. Suddenly he was just, it went from this gentleman struggling with what do you mean I've bought the skull of the Marquis de Sade, going from that to a living nightmare, which turns out to be a nightmare. But then he sort of goes home, puts the skull on the side, and then we need to talk about the book of the skin bound book.
Yeah,
because it's very Evil Dead. I mean, it's like the Necronomicon, which is bound in human flesh.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the other thing is that there was apparently a lot of improvisation and a lot of rewriting, because I think the screenplay was really just a rough outline of what was to be done, and a lot of it was improvised on set as well. So that makes sense.
I think if they made it these days, you'd have all these special effects. When he put the book, the Marquis de Sade's book, down with this human flesh cover, and next to the skull, I thought, oh, is there going to be some kind of like this flesh is going to attach to the skull, and like that's what you do now, and there'd be some CGI effect of the skin going onto the skull, and because they do that quite a lot with the Evil Dead films and series.
The skull should have talked and said, "I'm very disappointed in you, Peter Cushing."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I thought it had really great props, but it felt like a long short film, but it was still compelling, and the fact that it was only just 80 minutes long made you forgive the last 10 minutes. But I started laughing at the end, I must admit, because I was like, oh, there's the skull again, oh, it's following him again, all right, it's looking at him again, oh, he's going mad again. And there was one bit where I thought, between about 75 minutes, I was like, have I seen this sequence of shots before? Are they using the same sequence than they did 10 minutes ago?
They do this. I mean, this is what Amicus do. It does have hints of the Victorian Gothic, doesn't it? I mean, Hammer was much
Yeah.
more rooted in that, but Amicus always
Yeah.
brings things up a bit more to modern day, swinging London in the 1960s.
Oh yeah, well, yes, we've been there, haven't we? With our previous films, suddenly it's like, oh, okay, Daddy-O, this is the swinging 60s. But this was very timeless, really. It could have been a
Yeah.
Victorian story, or it could have been a modern story, or it could have been set at the time he got the Marquis's skull. They could have set it in the 18th century, whatever.
Yeah, it didn't have to be, but that's
Um,
very much a very Amicus to bring it more into modern day.
Yeah, I wonder, and obviously, every time we do one of these episodes, I think about the League of Gentlemen because they're, when I became more aware of Amicus is when it's sort of late 90s when I started watching League of Gentlemen and watching interviews with the cast, the creators of League of Gentlemen, and they would say, "Oh, Amicus this, Amicus that," and they talked a lot about the Wicker Man. They talked a lot about, and then the Christmas special of League of Gentlemen had the cursed monkey knackers, isn't it? And which we've discussed on previous episodes, and it reminded me of that. It's like it's the cursed object. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. You'll be cursed. Which is a really classic. I connect that cursed object type cinema to Amicus every time I think of a cursed object. No, don't have it in the room. It's cursed. I just think of Amicus, and I think there's a few more cursed object movies coming up
Well,
with our future viewings.
there are, and a lot of the portmanteau stuff does have those kind of storylines. But next time,
Yeah.
I believe that we're going to be talking about The Psychopath, a 1966 horror film. And again, very similar lineup. We've got Freddie Francis on direction. We've got Robert Bloch on writing duties. Obviously, Rosenberg and Subotsky producing. And Elizabeth Lutjens again doing the score.
Nice. That obviously worked for them, didn't it?
Ringo Starr on drums.
Great. Well, I'll enjoy that. I'm just looking at some facts about the skull. I think we've pretty much covered everything, but I think I didn't know that the Marquis's head was actually nicked.
What?
I thought it was the stuff. I love it when they do that. I always loved it when they do that George Lucas is quite good at doing that. He puts real life events and he mixes them with mythology, and so you've got, okay, this is not what happened, but it could have been what happened.
Yeah, I mean, David Lynch is, I mean, that's very sort of Twin Peaksy as well. So the return, isn't it? There's a lot of that as well.
Oh, you see that now. If we ever did a podcast about Twin Peaks, that would be, something I could definitely get behind. There you go. You heard it here first, folks. Let's just open up different channels of podcasts instead of focusing on one of them that we do like 4 times a year. Everyone's like, oh, for God's sake, just do your Amicus movies. Well, we've done 3 out of 17.
Well, lovely stuff. We should be
that's
through by
pretty good.
2050 in this rate. Come on.
If we both live that long, yes. It's terrifying to think of that eventuality, but yeah.
We'll be back sooner next time. Yes, that was nice. And if you do find yourself thinking, oh, I'd really fancy a podcast by Miles and Marcus in the interim, that we also do a Tintin podcast called Tintin Cast, which you can find over on YouTube.
We do, and I did one earlier this year. So far, only one series of called The Films That Ruined Us, which I would like to bring that back for a second series, but at the moment, very much up in the air, depending on people being busy. But yeah, thanks again. Please
is Up in the Air featured on the podcast?
Oh, of course it will be. And so actually, Up is. So there you go.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, that's one of Katie's choices. Yeah, but yeah, we'll be back next time with The Psychopath and also the film The Psychopath from Amicus.
See you next time.
Bye bye.